In a past life, I met Allan when he was most down and out and fell in love with him at first sight. After that, I started a long and relentless pursuit, and finally got what I wanted, marrying him. I always remembered him as an extremely aloof man, cold and unemotional. He was tough on others, sure, but even tougher on himself. He was always indifferent to everyone and everything. Even when our son tragically died in a terrible flood, he remained as cold as ever. It wasn't until Zara, his childhood friend, reappeared that I realized he could show warmth and smile. I just wasn't the one for whom he had those feelings. Going back to the 70s, I decided it was time to let go and end our painful marriage. But I was shocked when he knelt and begged me. "A patient, Emily, is bleeding again. Quick, get some plasma." I heard urgent voices around me. It was 1975, in a Los Angeles hospital Zara, where they were desperately trying to save an unconscious patient. My head hurt. Slowly, I opened my eyes to stark white walls and the overpowering smell of disinfectant. "What happened to me?" I asked, shocking myself with my own hoarse voice. "Emily," the doctor said, "you're worn out and need to stay in the hospital for a bit." Seeing a much younger face of my mother-in-law, Kate, stunned me. A wave of dizziness hit, and then I remembered. This was my wedding day. I had time traveled back to the day of my past life's wedding. At the time, during the vows, Zara fainted and Allan ran off with her to the hospital without a second thought, leaving me there. Kate hurriedly got me to a hospital after I coughed up blood from the emotional shock and collapsed. It was ridiculous. My new husband spent the whole night with Zara, leaving his new bride in the hospital alone and unattended. In my last life, after being discharged and urged by Allan's family, I chose to endure and forgive, starting a tragic path. This time I refused to make the same mistake. "Aunt, you should go." "I'll be fine. I'm a doctor, remember? I'll take care of myself. Go home and rest. I'll pack up and come back to settle things with Allan. Let's call off the wedding. When he's free, we'll take care of the divorce papers." "Emily, don't say things in anger. Allan grew up with Zara. He just sees her like a sister. I'll make sure he comes back, apologizes, and fetches you home. Don't overthink this." "Aunt, seriously, I'll be fine after a night's rest. You don't need to stay." Seeing my resolve, she knew that Allan would have to come apologize himself if he wanted any chance of reconciliation. She said, "All right, rest up. I'll send Allan to come get you." But what she didn't realize was that her unreliable son hadn't come home all night. I turned away, not wanting to look at her. She sighed and left with her things. Thinking about Allan now, he was undoubtedly outstanding. He was the youngest major in the capital's military district, tall, handsome, and upright. Despite his icy demeanor, the line of girls who liked him stretched from the south side of town to the north, no exaggeration. I was quite the looker myself, but by the time we met, his heart already belonged to someone else. I was a military doctor at the district hospital and met him when he got injured on a mission. I fell for him at first sight. It just so happened that Zara married around that time. During his hospital stay, I took great care of him, and his parents liked me a lot, urging him to marry me. To him, it seemed missing Zara meant it didn't matter who he married next. So why not someone pretty with a good career and family background? Zara had chosen to marry a higher-ranking officer because of her poor family situation. Allan's parents also hadn't pushed him because they disapproved of Zara's family background. Her mom was a stepmother, and her dad clearly favored boys over girls. They turned a blind eye to Zara, as they wanted nothing to do with her family. In my past life, I naively thought I was good enough to win Allan over eventually. How could I not compare to a housewife with just a middle school education? But reality hit me hard. I truly lost miserably. I gave him sincere love. He was everything to me. Yet, at the end of his life, he still called Zara's name. Thinking of this brought an indescribable bitterness to me. I forced myself to stop thinking about Allan. The memories were as bitter as a cup of undiluted strong tea, spreading throughout me. I bit my lip, using all my strength to control the flood of emotions. I checked in with myself. I was still dizzy with a foggy head, wanting to sleep but scared that sleeping would make this a dream. I'm struggling to keep my eyes open. It feels like countless tiny needles are stabbing my brain. The pain makes me frown hard. Thinking back, around this time Zara's husband was on a mission. She came alone to our wedding, and it's on this mission where her husband unfortunately lost his life. From that point on, Zara's dreams of being a happy military wife were shattered. Since then, Zara was like a ghost around us, often coming to see Allan. And Allan? He catered to her every need, no boundaries, always there for her and her son. His care and attention were all-encompassing. He even took charge of her son's wedding, organizing every single detail meticulously. He treated her son more like his own than he did ours, full of affection and indulgence. Every detail I recall, every instance of his bias, it's like a sharp knife stabbing my heart. Whenever Zara called, no matter the issue, Allan was their first thing. His hurried departure, his unwavering resolve, left me crying alone many nights. In my past life, Allan's extraordinary care for Zara and her son drove me almost insane with jealousy and heartache. At home, I've argued loudly with him out of frustration and resentment. My voice was full of despair and unwillingness, eyes blurred with tears, yet he remained unmoved. All I got in return was his icy rebuke. Zara's a childhood friend. She's like a sister to me. Don't think about us so crudely. Your nagging disgusts me. With that, he'd slam the door in anger, leaving me behind, heart shattered into pieces. Each door slam was like thunder, collapsing my world over and over. How blind was I in the past, believing I could make him see my value, acknowledge all I'd done for our family, what I expected and fantasized about. Now it feels like nothing but illusions, leaving only regret and pain. The agony from my past was like a heavy shackle, suffocating me. In this life, I've decided to let go and put all grudges behind. Life's fundamentally subtractive. The days ahead aren't guaranteed to be long or stable. Having tasted the bitterness of stubborn love, looking back, it seems like nothing in the end. Letting go and not clinging to unchangeable pasts, freeing myself from misery, might just be fortunate. I can search anew for my own warmth and sunshine, waking up with sunlight streaming through the curtains onto my face. After a thorough check, the doctor told me I'm fine to be discharged. Not a single person from Allan's family showed up all night. My heart twinged with pain for a moment, then I calmed myself. I checked myself out, firmly heading back to the single dorm at work. Thankfully, yesterday's wedding meant I hadn't moved out yet, so it was still a temporary refuge. In my past life, the military hospital was researching pediatric fever medicine, stuck due to an ineffective formula. A dismissed senior expert eventually adjusted it, leading to its success. I remember the formula from when I used the medicine for my son. My past desire to stay by Allan's side and care for my son meant I never achieved much in medicine. Just a typical doctor all my life. Now, with future medical experience, my mind holds precious formulas and advanced knowledge. Determined to make my life great, I rushed back to the dorm, eagerly jotting down the fever medicine formula. After gathering all needed supplies, I spent my days mixing and testing. Lost in my work, I forgot about time and everything else. Finally, 5 days later, I had the optimal formula. Looking at my disheveled self in the mirror, I acknowledged my tired reflection. Emily, how ridiculous you are. Gone for 5 days, and the one you thought would spend life with you didn't even look for you. Pathetic. I laughed at myself. Meanwhile, Allan was with Zara, who fainted hearing about her husband's death 3 days ago. He was at the hospital, taking good care of her as she risked early labor in her fragile state. My research-focused parents, still unaware of my looming divorce, were delighted with their outstanding son-in-law. Holding the formula and medicine, I washed and dressed up, heading to the director's office. I solemnly handed the medicine to him. "Director, this is my independently developed pediatric fever medicine. Please take a look and conduct clinical trials." My voice held a hint of excitement. "What? You successfully developed a pediatric fever medicine on your own?" The director stood up so suddenly, the chair toppled with a loud noise, startling me. I thought, is he really that excited? Though my heart raced just as much. "Yes, this is the formulated medicine. Please gather an expert team for evaluation." I tried keeping my voice steady. "All right, I'll call the team right away." And like the wind, the director zipped out of the office. Hard to believe he's in his 50s with that agility. In no time, the expert team and I gathered in the conference room. I submitted the formula, and after the experts' in-depth research, they decided to proceed with clinical trials for the ready-made medication. The rest of the steps were up to the hospital experts, and I just had to patiently wait for the results a week from now. While waiting, I didn't hesitate to go to the family and move all my belongings back without missing a thing. As for Allan, I honestly couldn't care less what he was up to right now. I promptly submitted a divorce application to my superiors. Since Allan and I had a military marriage, the divorce required strict approval, which meant the process was a bit slow. But as long as I firmly expressed my stance, the rest was just a waiting game. Furthermore, their military district and our hospital had so many people witnessing our wedding day that the gossip spread like wildfire until everyone knew. I've meticulously planned everything for myself. College entrance exams will be reinstated in 2 years. With time on my side, I need to start studying hard now. I'm confident I can score even better than in my past life. So I headed straight to a junk shop, as that's the only place I might find all the study materials I need. I went to the largest junkyard in Los Angeles. Word around town says that LA's East is affluent and West is classy, so I chose to come to the West, thinking this junkyard would have the most goodies. Returning to this unique era, I had to hit the junk shop to treasure hunt a bit. At the entrance, I saw an old man deeply focused on his newspaper.
He handed over 50 cents.
Hey there, I'm going inside to look for some high school textbooks. The old man glanced at the money, nodded, and seriously said, "Don't take anything you shouldn't." I thought to myself, why would I give you money if I wasn't planning to take something I shouldn't? We both understood each other without words. Once inside, I took out a surgical mask from my bag and put it on, then got to work rummaging. As it turns out, having lived another life seems to give me a bit of luck. Shortly after, I noticed something odd about a vanity table drawer. After a bit of tapping and knocking, I uncovered a hidden compartment. Carefully, I pulled out a cloth wrap from inside. A glimpse inside revealed a splash of emerald green, so I quickly rewrapped it and shoved it into a hidden pocket in my clothes. That alone made this trip totally worth it. In an old yellow book, I also found an ancient text by a famous calligrapher. Whether or not it was the real deal, it's undeniably valuable. I quietly tucked it away in the hidden pocket of my clothes as well. After spending almost 2 hours, I finally gathered the high school textbooks and a well-known set of college entrance exam review materials. Having taken the exam once already, I know that the first college entrance exam's content mostly came from these materials. As long as I thoroughly go through these, getting into a top school won't be a problem. Full of excitement, I tied the books up with a string and headed to the junk shop door. Just as I stepped out, I almost tripped over a dark stick nearby. Annoyed, I looked at the culprit, only to find it was an ebony cane. Ebony is a pretty precious wood, so I picked it up. It felt a bit heavy, but it was perfect for balancing the stack of books. I balanced the books with one hand and carried a vase with the other as I approached the old man at the door. He glanced at the items in my hand, and after a bit of negotiating, I ended up paying $6 in total. It was unbelievable. It felt like I had really found some incredible deals. The vase in my hand, if I wasn't mistaken, should be the creation of a famous ancient artist. Later in an auction, it could go for over $100 million. Back in the dorm, I couldn't wait to take the treasures out of my pocket. Inside the cloth wrap were 5 imperial green jewelry pieces. Each was a top-tier piece worth a fortune. Plus, there were 10 multicolored gems, each larger than my thumbnail. I'd hit the jackpot. After safely storing the cloth wrap and ancient painting, I started cleaning the vase. Once it was clean, I was even more convinced it was a rare treasure. I wrapped it in silk and carefully stored it in the cabinet. When cleaning the cane, something seemed odd, and sure enough, I found a mechanism. Upon unscrewing it, I discovered the cane was hollow, filled with small gold bars. There were 20 in total. Also inside were 2 yellowed sheets of paper. One had a few royal diets and health regimens, the other was a prescription for a well-known royal medicine and cream. Seeing those recipes, my hands trembled with excitement. As a doctor, I knew just how valuable those papers were. This junkyard was truly a hidden treasure trove. I silently decided I should visit more often. After a series of rigorous clinical tests, the children's fever medicine I developed successfully passed evaluations. It began its designated tests at our hospital, set for a month. During this special period, medical supplies were extremely scarce, and the testing process for new medicines wasn't as complicated as in the future, especially for traditional Chinese medicine. The dean called me to his office. "Dr. Emily, the children's fever medicine is producing remarkable results. It not only reduces fever quickly, but its production cost is also very low. After testing at our hospital for the next month, it can soon be put to large-scale clinical use. The contribution you've made is enormous, and since you didn't use any public research funds, our hospital leaders have decided to apply for a research grant for you. So there are rewards for applying, you know? I wonder if there's a reward you're particularly interested in. Maybe I could help you apply for it? Asked the dean, giving me a kind smile. Thanks, Dean. Well, you know I'm prepping for a divorce. And after that, being homeless won't be the greatest thing. Do you think I could apply for a courtyard house? Preferably near the sea where the view's awesome. I gathered up my courage and laid out my thoughts. That area will be prime real estate later. It's a request worth mentioning, who knows? Maybe it'll happen. I secretly calculated the possibilities, fantasizing shamelessly. You really dare to ask, huh? I'll try to help you apply, but I can't guarantee approval, said the dean, still considering my request modest. In his heart, he thought my request was a loss. Courtyard houses aren't highly valued now. People with jobs usually have family accommodations and hardly buy houses intentionally. You could ask for money or a work position instead, which is much more practical. Dean, I hesitated a bit before calling out to him again. He looked up at me. Anything else you need? I quickly waved my hand. Not a request, just a thought. His interest piqued. Let's hear it. I quickly replied, Dean, you know I'm a surgeon. Our military hospital has a huge demand for hemostatic drugs, but there's no affordable, effective domestic option. I've been working on some ideas recently. You really have ideas? How confident are you? The dean seemed to have mysterious confidence in me. After my success with children's antipyretics, I gestured a tiny bit, just a little bit. All right, wait for notification. I'll apply for a project quota at the Military District's Drug Research Institute for you. Thank you, Dean. And if the research starts, could my divorce process be expedited? I asked hesitantly. I'll handle it specially for you. I'll inform the military district. Thank you, Dean. Also, I need an assistant. Could you help me borrow someone? I want the old expert who modified the prescription to help me research the hemostatic drug. It's compensation for using their findings. Such a skilled expert shouldn't waste away in a remote place. All right, I'll try. You sure know how to ask tough favors, the dean said, rubbing his forehead after looking through the old expert's files. Thanks, Dean. I knew you could do it. I playfully gave him a perfect salute and then turned to leave, feeling upbeat. Just as I reached the hospital lobby, I unexpectedly ran into Allan, helping Zara carefully. Who knows where they were heading? This was my first time seeing my past life's husband since being reborn, and there he was, supporting another woman intimately like a caring husband helping his pregnant wife. Watching them, a wave of bitterness surged within me, and for a moment, even breathing became a struggle. Despite telling myself countless times not to care, to let go, seeing him again with that youthful face brought a piercing pain to my heart. I clenched my fists, trying to ignore them and walk past. But that woman just wouldn't let it go. Emily, what are you doing here? Here to see Allan? Zara asked in a faux weak tone, leaning on Allan even more deliberately. Zara, did you forget I'm a doctor here? I met her gaze calmly with an indifferent tone. Sorry, I forgot. You aren't mad at me, right, Emily? Zara continued her exaggerated performance. Mad at your memory? Mad you're clinging to another woman's husband after yours died? I retorted sharply. Emily, how could you say something so malicious? Before Zara could put on another act, Allan yelled furiously. Turning coldly, I locked eyes with him. A mocking smile played on my lips. Am I lying? Allan glared back just as coldly. I didn't know you were so vicious. Can you stop acting crazy here? You don't care about your reputation, but I do. I acted surprised. You care about your image? I couldn't tell. An unfaithful husband and a widow in public like this, yet you boast? That's hilarious. Someone tell me who's shameless here? Where's your discipline as a soldier? Your honor as a martyr's family? Amidst my confronting questions and the onlookers' harsh criticisms, both turned beet red with shame. When Zara feigned fainting again, I chuckled lightly. What? Feeling shameless, so you're playing faint again? You're at a hospital. Doctors here can easily tell fake from real. Don't overact. With that, I turned away from them. Emily, you're provoking a pregnant woman. You don't deserve to be a doctor. Allan shouted angrily from behind. Questioning my fitness for my profession, do you think you deserve it? By the way, I filed for divorce. Would you kindly respond? It often just takes one moment for the love to die. Meanwhile, I stuck to my routine, attending surgeries and patients with care. I ran into them a few more times, but every time I chose to ignore them. Then, after finishing a long complex surgery, I happened upon Zara surprisingly alone. I saw her all alone, and alarm bells immediately went off in my head. I got super cautious and moved away from her as quickly as I could. Could this crazy woman be here to harm me? I quickly hopped over to a corner on the stairs and by chance, saw a glimpse of army green rushing up from below. I instantly knew who it was, so I deliberately said loudly, "Zara, stop right there or I'm going to call for help." "Go ahead, call them. It's lunch break, no one's around. What do you think would happen if I accidentally fell down the stairs?" Zara's voice had lost its usual sweetness and was now chilling. "Are you insane? What about your baby? It's the captain's only heir." I couldn't believe it. How could she be this crazy? Isn't it a good trade-off? Sacrifice him to ruin your reputation and see you end up in jail. Just an heir, his father's dead anyway, why do we need him? It'll make Allan despise you and feel guilty towards me. Then he'll be devoted to me. Her face twisted with a near maniacal smile, distorting into something terrifying. I looked at her confused. "If you liked Allan so much, why didn't you marry him instead of the captain?" She scoffed. "Because I love power the most. The captain outranks Allan, and you know what they say about rank, right? Allan would take ages to reach the captain's level. Plus his judgmental mom never liked me. Marrying me would really get under her skin. Then why are you still chasing after married Allan now?" I noticed the figure in army green had stopped moving, so I kept asking loudly. "Because I have nothing left. And he has feelings for me. Would I really choose to be a widow with nothing to lean on?" Her tone turned icy as she stared at me. "I can divorce him, just don't make me leave the hospital. I'll make things work for you too. Who needs your help? I could ruin you instead. Why should I keep you around to compare myself to? Allan's the blind one here, not seeing your excellence and preferring me." Zara laughed manically, tears streaming down her face, totally mad. "If I relocate to another city and stay far from you, don't do anything to hurt yourself. Rolling down those stairs could make you infertile forever." I kept trying to advise her. "The worse I have it, the more Allan will hate you. He's got a strong sense of responsibility. If you mess up, he might not even want a divorce. So why not help him along?" In my past life, I didn't ever come to work at the hospital before Zara gave birth. And nothing like this ever happened. After being reborn, some things changed inevitably, but at least Allan now saw Zara's true, ugly nature. Allan, who you loved all your life, turns out she's a real snake. You really are blind. Everyone come out, you've heard everything, right? I called out to the stairway, looking calm. "What? Who are you talking to?" Zara's voice noticeably panicked. A few people slowly appeared from the stairs, including Allan and some military leaders and hospital staff. Everyone heard Zara's heartfelt confession loud and clear. A week later, on one morning, I was summoned to the dean's office again. "Dean, were the applications approved?" I asked, full of anticipation, my eyes bright with hope. "They were all approved." The dean warmly smiled and pulled out several file folders from a drawer. "This is your reward application. A courtyard house near the ocean, and here's a 10,000 yuan bonus." He handed me a file and a thick envelope. I eagerly opened them. Inside was a deed and a deposit slip for 10,000 yuan in cash. "This is your divorce certificate, specially expedited for you." He handed over another file. I took it with overwhelming joy. Freedom after 2 lifetimes finally in my grasp. "This is the project approval document." Lastly, he handed me another folder. I lovingly gathered them all, carefully placing them in my backpack. "Thank you, Dean. I'll be leaving the hospital temporarily." I straightened my back and saluted the dean sharply. "Good. You are the pride of our hospital. Do your research well, and I hope to see your results soon." He returned the salute, full of encouragement and anticipation. "I won't let you down," I said firmly, my voice resolute. When I left the hospital with my suitcase, the sunlight was a bit glaring. "Emily, wait a moment," came a gentle voice I'd heard my entire life, though it had never annoyed me as much as it did now. I took a deep breath and turned around to see Allan in a white shirt and black pants, standing next to his mother. He looked at me with earnest eyes filled with deep guilt. I'd never seen such a cautious Allan before. He'd always been so cold and distant. "Do you need something?" I asked, face impassive as I glanced at my watch. "Emily, I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me and give me a chance to win you back?" His tone was humble, like a child asking for forgiveness. "Allan, when you left me on our wedding day, it was over between us," I replied coldly and decisively, without a hint of hesitation. When Allan heard what I said, it was like he got hit by a truck. His face turned ashen. "Was there really no chance? There's nothing between Zara and me. I've always seen her as a sister. I'm wrong, can you forgive me, please?" He suddenly dropped to his knees, leaving everyone around in shock. I was surprised by his action, but the hurt from my past lives helped me quickly regain my composure. "Allan, I'll never forgive you. Emily, Allan knows he messed up. He's been lying around at home for days now. Please forgive him, won't you?" His mom spoke with a choking voice, her eyes full of desperation. "Sorry, I have to go." Without another glance at them, I turned and got into the car from the research institute that came to pick me up. The car sped off, kicking up a cloud of dust. 3 months later, the hemostatic drug successfully passed clinical trials. Thanks to its outstanding effectiveness and low cost, it was quickly adopted by major hospitals and the military, gaining widespread use. "Annie, you can go back. I'm fine. I'm a doctor, I can take care of myself. Go rest. After I'm discharged, I'll come back to pack my things. Allan and I are done. When he has time, we can get the divorce papers." During my time in clinical trials at the military hospital, I overheard the decision regarding Allan and Zara's punishment. Allan was forced to leave the military and became deputy director at a bicycle factory. Zara, after giving birth to a son, had her child taken care of by captain parents, while she was sentenced to 2 years in prison. A colleague mentioned this to me and also said that Allan was constantly trying to get news about me. I just scoffed and paid it no mind. I turned back to my work on drug development and preparing for college entrance exams. Before the exams, I managed to acquire 5 courtyard houses and a storefront, with over $60,000 in savings. I was living like a queen. The year was 1977, and the exciting news of the national college entrance exams being reinstated spread like wildfire across the country. With 2 years of hard studying, I aced the exams and got into one of the top universities in Los Angeles. I chose this university because I happened to own a courtyard house nearby, making commuting much easier. When newspapers reported my outstanding results and my smile graced the pages, Allan spent a whole night drinking alone. Not long after, I heard he quit and moved south. After graduation, I started working at a research institute. Just a year later, I married my college professor, the youngest PhD holder from Beijing University at 28. He had returned from getting his PhD in the UK 2 years earlier, and had been my teacher for a year. After I graduated, he pursued me relentlessly. Looking into his charming eyes and at his ridiculously handsome face, with broad shoulders, a narrow waist, long legs, and perfectly chiseled muscles, who could ever resist? A year after we got married, we welcomed adorable twins, a boy and a girl. When the twins turned 10, my charming husband decided to leave his teaching job to pursue business. With the help of my knowledge from the future, he successfully established a pharmaceutical company, a cosmetic products factory, a nutritional foods factory, and more. Within just 2 years, the company went public. We became part of the first generation of wealth in the era of economic reform. Since being reborn, I've truly lived up to the saying, "If flowers bloom, the butterflies will come." I intend to live a happy life, and I hope you do too. The end.